Hey guys, have you ever run into this challenge? You're posting on social media, you're trying to show up, and nobody's paying attention, right? You posted your most amazing post of a product or service that you're offering, and they just won't buy. And you're kind of struggling to figure out, like, what's the deal? What is it that you need to do to make happen? So, my name is Maya Haridat. I'm a business coach and speaker, and I help entrepreneurs crush their sales plan. Now, there could be a whole host of reasons as to why people are not buying, but I thought it'd be interesting to dive into a few of the areas that people often don't dive in deep around sales. Because here's the deal that I can tell you. If you start mastering and understanding sales and you start becoming a expert at it in your strength, right? In the things that you do naturally well, you'll be able to master any channel, platform, way of being able to sell your products or services. It won't matter whether you're on one social media platform or you're standing up in front of an audience, you're going to come out winning. So let's dive into today's topic. I'll assume a few things about your business. I'm going to assume a couple of things. One, that you're in this business for the long term. These are not tips that are going to help you out for the short term at all. You might get a few wins, right? And that's always a good thing. But if you're really trying to do this thing because you want to make an impact, you believe in the work that you're doing, these are tips that are going to help you in that regards. Most of these tips, number two, are primarily for service based businesses, meaning a business where you're taking your knowledge, a skill set you have, and you're converting that into being able to get paid. There are some differences for product based businesses, especially when you're trying to be able to sell on social media. But I will tell you, a lot of the ideas that I'm sharing convert whether you're doing a product or a service. They're just more orientated towards service based businesses. Okay. And then the third one is this. A lot of times when we start talking about sales and marketing and being able to make more money in with your business, we're being tossed a ton of ideas to just keep trying and testing and buy this product here or do this particular thing there. And I think that there's huge value in that because if it's going to save you time as an entrepreneur, I'm here for it. But a lot of times we haven't started at the beginning and started learning about some of the fundamentals about sales. And I just want to give you a quick high level conversation about that today so that you can start seeing more returns. You can start seeing more wins from your business. And to be frank, any type of business venture that you want to get into, this will have an impact in that regards. So let's get started. Let's see how we can make this sad puppy a little bit happier, right? So here's the first one, and this is probably the foundation of everything when it comes to you selling and you being able to make more money in your company. Are you talking about their problem or are you talking about your features? Now, if you're a service based business, and I'm a service based business, I deliver workshops and trainings, I do coaching, so I understand this world extremely, extremely well. Now, if you're a service based business, this is one of the hardest things to do because your job is to solve the folks' problems, your job is to help these people, and you're so amped about the features. But let's do a quick example using my business. Let's say that, I'm using my business from a speaking perspective, right? Do any of you really care about the learning objectives of today's talk? No. Maybe a handful of you who might have an instructional design background, or if you have a curriculum, you've been an educator, you might be sort of curious about what that is, but you don't really care what the learning objectives are about today. And that may be the thing I'm geeking out over, okay? What you really care about is, Maya, help me make more money in my company, right? How do I get more money coming in quicker, faster, and in a way that's not going to stress me out? So, your job as an entrepreneur is to start listening carefully to what people say. Because in many cases, people are telling you what the problems are. Even people who might be friends and family who are not buying from you, if you start doing a couple of activities, I'm going to give you 3 activities to get started with, you're going to hear the problems show up, and your job is going to be to start communicating and talking about those problems so that you're able to build a bigger audience and people are aware that you exist. So here's one way that I find to be very helpful to listen to the problems that people have. When you introduce your business from this day forward, whether you're with friends or family, whether you're doing this online, listen to the questions that people ask. Okay? Listen to the types of stories that they talk about relating to your business. Now, a lot of times, here's the challenge, they're going to get it all wrong. And you're going to be standing there like, that's not what I do at all. Can anyone relate to that? That is not what I do at all. But I want to challenge you. Your job is not to correct them. And it's a hard thing to do, by the way. Your job is to listen to what it is that they tell you. And if you keep hearing that theme show up again and again and again, let me tell you guys, there may be something to it. Okay. I'll give you a quick one that showed up in my business for years. I used to, for years, introduce myself as a trainer because in many, HR circles or in many speaking circles, that is typically what I like to do best. I like to train people on new content and let them understand what that is. However, I started realizing when I really started networking pretty openly and like really on a regular basis, when I said the word trainer, most people had no idea what trainer meant. Now, I could then spend years and eons trying to educate them, which that didn't get me very far. And it was hard because I do like to educate. Or what I could do is identify what are the spaces and places that people are getting what it is that I offer, and how do I dig in more to be able to help them. And the truth of the matter was, when I was first introducing myself as a trainer, I wasn't doing it from the perspective of I like training. I like the results of working with audiences where you get to make an impact, where you get to give them an idea and they're transformed by that idea forever when they leave out of the room. That's what I'm really about, is about transformation, right? So the more I started listening to people giving me that pushback, and it was hard. It was hard because I really did like the term trainer a lot. The more I realized, no, I'm more of a facilitator, a speaker, a coach. Definitely, I did a lot of informal coaching before I started actually doing coaching formally. And that one thing shifted my whole business around because when I started talking to more people that had never met me before, they could relate to it. Okay? I'm going to give you another quick example too. I don't have a picture of this, but I want you to take this example in because I think it's a powerful one. I shared this in a workshop recently, and you know what? I might actually even do a whole training on this, but let me give you some of the goods to get started with it, right? If you were driving a car and you had a flat tire, what's the problem that you have? You're stuck. You got a flat tire, right? And if you're like me, I know there's like the 5-point way I'm supposed to change the tire and all this stuff. Me jacking up the car, you don't really want me to actually do that. Okay, maybe I could get a lug nut or two off, but you really don't want me jacking up the car. So here's the deal. If I'm the driver of the car and I get a flat tire, what I need is someone to fix the tire and fix it immediately. Now, a mechanic or an auto body shop or a tire shop in the area might be advertising and promoting to me they've got the world's best tires, right? These tires go for 100,000 miles in snow and salt and all types of road conditions. Do I really care about that at that moment? No. What is it I care about? I care about you fixing my tire and making sure that I can get back on the road, that my day is not interrupted. That's the real problem about the tire. It's actually not even the tire itself. If you dig underneath the surface a little bit, the real reason why the tire is a problem is because I can't get accomplished what I need to get accomplished. That's the real problem, and that's the real cost. And let me even break this down for you really quickly. If you started then promoting to me about the tire as being $300, and at that moment I'm thinking, $300, do I really have to spend $300? And this is the world's greatest tire, but I don't really care. I just need my tire fixed. But now you shift the conversation and say, and by paying this $300 for this tire, you're now going to be on time for work today, even though you had a flat tire. Now we're talking, because that's worth a whole lot more than the $300 is. And I hope that you get from that quick example. This is one of those things you've got to unpack, and you technically have to do it a number of times. I do this type of work frequently with my coaching clients, and definitely when we do our one-on-one calls, of listening and unpacking this, right? I'm giving you 2 quick examples. But I hope that you hear this with this tire example, because in the moment that the auto body shop or the mechanic starts to explain, look, it's $300. That's what I'm going to charge you. But you're going to get back all this time again in your life, right? You're going to be on time for work. Your boss is not going to be mad at you. You're going to pick the kids up on time from work right now. On time from school. Forgive me. Their school is work. So, work with me here. But if you paint the picture now of all of these things that are going to go back into play the way you normally would have them go back into play, I may not want to spend $300 on a tire. Be clear. But that's the value to me as the buyer, is that my life goes back to normal and it's unbothered and I can do what I need to do. You have to communicate that within your businesses, guys. You have to dig underneath the surfaces and figure out what those particular things are. And I would really challenge for many of you, start listening to your customers, start listening to people when you're introducing yourself with your business. And what is it that they tell you their problems are? Not what you think they are, not what problems you know they should solve. What are their problems? And the more you start speaking to their problems and giving them solutions, like I did with that tire example, the more you're going to have people coming and seeing your marketing and saying, yeah, I'm totally interested in it. Okay. So let's get into another idea. How consistent are you? Ouch. Now, I want to be clear. I'm a busy entrepreneur as well too. I have a family. There are a bunch of things that I love engaging in. I try to have a life every now and then. And so being consistent around marketing and sales, it takes work, right? It's not an easy thing. But here's the deal. There is a formula that's known in advertising that you have to show up at least 7 times before a customer is going to be aware that your brand exists, not necessarily that they're going to buy from you, but that you exist. And so in today's day and age, where we've got 600 messages, flying at us at all times, you get on social media and in 5 minutes, you've had 100 different marketing messages communicated to you. If you're not consistently showing up on a regular basis, it's going to be really hard for people to find you and really understand how you're going to make an impact on what their needs and solutions are going to be. So here's what I recommend for you. Don't get all crazy on me right now when I talk about being consistent, all right? I want you to pick one space that you want to get consistent on. And I will do other videos and other how-tos to give you some ideas about how to show up consistently, because there is that part of it. But right now, I just want you to pick one thing that you want to be consistent on, and what does that consistency look like, right? If you're going to be on social media, to be frank, you probably are going to have to show up on a daily basis, because by the time somebody posts something on most of the platforms, although there are 2 actually where you do get some big wins at that, we can dive into those a little bit later, that for most of the platforms, once you post the content, it's up, it's done, and people got what they needed to and forgot all about you. So you're going to have to show up on a daily basis. If, however, you're thinking about things like email marketing, you have a sizable email list, or if you're thinking about doing follow-up calls with people that shared with you interest, that one you can probably set at a longer pace. Follow-up calls maybe every couple of months. You reach out to people after that initial inquiry. Emails, maybe it's once a week, maybe it's, 2 times a month or something like that. There's a variety of ways to market your business, but the key is you have to show up consistently so that when the customer is ready to buy from you, if they've already seen you at least 7 times, they're familiar with your brand, they're kind of like, yeah, I'm interested. But then the one time that they need you, you're not in their inbox, you're not on their social media feed, you're not picking up the phone and calling them, they're not going to hunt you down. They're just not. They're going to go find somebody else who offers the same service, and they're going to work with them, and all of that energy that you've spent is wasted. So I want to be clear. Don't stress out over this. Don't go completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs thinking you got to be on every single social media platform tomorrow and, running, advertisements here and there. Not at all. Pick one for right now and set a consistency that you are going to show up with on a regular basis. And don't even worry about how good it looks for right now. But just being consistent is going to allow you to reach that number of 7 times that someone has to become familiar about your brand. And it will make it doable that once they find you, they're then going to be interested in wanting to work with you. Okay? So we'll pick the one platform. Now, I'm also going to toss out one that I think is a really big issue. And I'm going to highlight this one and gloss over it. But I think, honestly, it's part of the big challenge with all of this. Maybe you've never formally learned sales. That could be one of the reasons that's holding you back from being able to sell more. I mean, if you think about it, major corporations spend thousands of dollars in sales training for their sales reps. Why do they do that? Right? And even the super advanced, $1 million round table type of sales folks, they still often have to go through different types of sales training on a regular basis. So why wouldn't we? Right? Why wouldn't we? Now, I will say this, that as someone who's spoken for years in the entrepreneurship space, I will say that one of the things that frustrates me is that sales is not one of those topics a lot of times that you'll see. You don't see a lot of workshops or trainings or events on it. Or, when I've been asked to speak on different panels or, for different conferences that I've spoken at, sometimes people are asking me to kind of tone down the sales talk. And I'm kind of like, for an entrepreneur, are you kidding me? Like, this is how we make our money. We need to learn, different techniques about sales and, selling to high ticket customers or, selling to new markets. There's always something to learn about it. So I just want to point that out. Give yourself some grace, guys. You probably didn't take any formal type of training on sales and depending upon the industry you come from. So for example, when I started my business, I worked a lot in the space of nonprofit or education. I work with quite a few higher education clients too. Sales was actually frowned upon by most of the departments that I would have worked with. So maybe for some of you, it's not only you didn't learn how to formally sell, but also the jobs you've worked with in the past. Are you kidding me? Anything sales related, you would have gotten in trouble for, right? Any ways of thinking like what we're talking about right here would not have been valued or appreciated in your work environment. So this one, I just want you guys to give yourself some grace. It's going to take time. You're going to make a ton of mistakes, right? But I think if you just acknowledge for a lot of us that we haven't been formally taught, maybe you need to invest some time. Maybe you need to work with a coach or join a program or work with a mentor around this area so that you can identify here, I want to work on this one thing. I want to learn how to do sales calls really well. Right? Or I want to learn how to be able to sell high ticket items. I'm going to invest in that. Or maybe you want to hang out with me and work on your sales plan because that can tremendously transform your business. I say go for it, but give yourself some grace because for a lot of us, we have not been trained on how to do sales. And even if you were formally trained, most people know there's always more to be able to learn in this particular topic. Okay? And here's the final one that I'll toss out for you that I think is a super helpful one when you're thinking about why people won't buy. Maybe they just weren't interested right now. Doesn't mean they're not interested. And that's a key. And I want you to go back to that consistency idea that I gave you a little bit earlier about how consistent are you. I have myself been on a number of email newsletters lists that I've been on for years, y'all. Right? And just stepped back and watched and observed. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'll buy something. Right? Or actually, I did it with a clothing retailer this fall. I haven't bought from this one clothing retailer in probably like 4 or 5 years. At one point, I bought everything from this clothing retailer. And then, my tastes change and trends change and things like that. And then this fall, for the holiday season, I wanted to pick up what I thought would be some really nice gifts. And I was like, now, if that clothing retailer for the past 4 or 5 years wasn't consistent about sending out their newsletter, and didn't pay to keep me on that newsletter, right? Because it takes work to keep these types of marketing tools up. They would have missed a really nice sizable win on their end because they didn't have to try to court me or get me interested or get me invested. I already knew about the brand. I was already really familiar with it. I just was in that not now category. And I think that's one of the things we have to get really, really comfortable with. You probably want to have a large number of people that are your prospects or a large number of people that you're keeping a relationship going with your marketing on a regular basis. And it's not to say you have to do one-to-one conversations with these people. There's all types of ways of how you can communicate with a large group and it not stress you out. But you need to have that large group because you don't know when and why someone may push the button. Okay. For those of you in the service-based industry, a lot of times, it's these different factors that you can't, put into play as to why somebody's going to be interested. I think my favorite one that's a perfect example of not now is when I think about when folks get their tax refund and all of a sudden I start seeing all these different car commercials online. They start popping up out of nowhere. Well, why is that happening? Well, because the car industry understands you get your tax refund, you've got now money for a down payment, and you can kind of make things happen. Well, I'm betting that for quite a few of those car companies or any of those companies that are trying to, time when people are going to have access to money, the ones that probably get the most and that probably come out on the winning side the most are the ones that have been consistent about it and building the relationship the whole time. Okay? So just because you didn't get it right now doesn't mean that people didn't see the advertising, doesn't mean that they weren't interested in it. It just means maybe not now, and your job is to keep showing up. And so I want to leave you with this final tip. Your job, guys, is to assess what your sales goals are and what you're doing around your marketing, and then create a plan from that and continue to execute. Far too often, people will try something one time, it doesn't work, they totally give up. They're like, this is not going to work, I'm never going to get results. And maybe it's just that you needed to show up a little bit more. You just needed to continue showing up, and people would start becoming familiar with your brand. They would start becoming familiar with the problems that you serve, and they would start to understand how it could connect in with their lives as to how they may want to purchase from you. So I hope that these tips, which again are not designed to help you make a gazillion dollars overnight, but long term, my friends, if you master these tips long term, you can see some major sales wins in your business. And I am all about helping you guys produce that happy cash flow long term. All right, guys, hope this was helpful, and definitely stay tuned for future videos on these types of topics. Take care.